Is everyone ready? We will say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 2, we will call the July 20th, 2023 Village Board meeting to order. Roll call shows all trustees are present. Staff are present. Chris has been excused. And Attorney Michael is also here. Number 4, agenda changes. Are there any? Okay. 5, consent agenda. A, May 18th, 2023. Committee of the Whole minutes. B, July 6th, 2023. Regular board meeting minutes. C, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, I would need a motion to accept.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I will second that.
Roll call. Grace?
Aye. Aye.
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard.
Jim Seeloff, Devil Engineering.
Do I need
Go
to
ahead.
come up or?
You can stand wherever you like.
Okay. I'm Jim Sala from Dable Engineering. I'm the surveyor on the project for the replat of Westwind Estates. Last village board meeting, it was on the agenda for the final plat of Westwind Estates replat to be approved, and it was tabled. We originally submitted this plat back on March 15th, the day before my surgery. The state has a 60-day deadline for approval of plat before it's automatically deemed approved. We're trying to work with you guys on this plat. We could walk down and record it without any problem right now. But we're asking that you approve the plat tonight with contingency of a developer agreement being signed. There's been one sticking point, and I'll talk about that in a second. And basically that will allow us to work forward to record this plat and get everything moving for added development within the village. The one sticking point of the developer agreement, late in the game in the preliminary plat process, town staff told us we had to add a trail connection. This really isn't a trail. It's an 8-foot wide, 270-foot long connection between the cul-de-sac on the plat and I think it's Jokey Street on the south side. It's actually very detrimental to lots, and the developer has lost interest in several lots because of this trail. Plus, another sticking agreement is who is liable, who's responsible for maintaining the trail, clearing snow, if somebody falls on it. This is on private property, and it's wide enough for a UTV to go down. What is the village going to do to stop UTVs? We're just asking to have that trail, the language for the trail, completely removed from the plat and the engineering plans. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will move to 7, committee reports. A, Public Facilities Committee. Julie?
We met on July 13th. I just put the meeting minutes in front of you. It didn't make the packet this time. I could go through this, or you can, if you've got any questions. Otherwise, no changes to the gazebo at Veterans Park. At this time, no change to, or no update to the insulation. There's some research being done on that. We're looking into possible gutters on the garage back behind us here. And then we did a lot of discussion on Alonzo Park. 3 different points on that, but no major action taken. We did the phase 1 contract. We did a lot of discussion on that. So I'm trying to think, Nathan, we couldn't make the recommendation, or we didn't go ahead with any contract. We're just, is that they're looking into what we want in the contract, correct? how I understand this?
Yeah, you asked for us to pursue that. We
Just
actually
pursue it.
met with them this morning, and they requested some additional information from us.
Okay,
But I think they have everything they need now, so then they will come back with us with a contract that we can bring to the next board meeting.
okay. But nothing major changed? It's
Nope.
just updates. And for now, we're holding off on any kind of ad hoc design committee. So other than that, if anybody has any questions, let me know.
Any questions for Julie? Okay, we'll move to 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There is none. 9, new business. A, discussion and possible action on O-7-23 downtown zoning code parking ordinance.
This parking ordinance was brought to planning and zoning, and after a discussion, the idea was that the planning and zoning commission did want to remove the requirement of parking, but then they decided after thinking through it more, they wanted to have the ability to prevent them from a business from necessarily removing parking from their current area without necessarily prior approval. So basically, I reached out to the attorneys and kind of had them take that into consideration when developing the ordinance, and that was the language they came up with. Was you keep the same 200 square feet of floor space, which is per parking spot. Keep that in there, but then you have the ability to petition the planning and zoning board to basically, if you're doing an extension out back, that might be reducing any parking, you could still potentially get a building permit with a special exemption request.
Does anyone have questions?
So you just need a motion to amend the parking?
If you just pass O-7-23, amending
Okay,
downtown zoning, oh yeah.
all right. I will make a motion to approve O-7-23, the ordinance amending section 44-156, area height, yard, and parking requirements.
I'll second.
Roll call. Grace?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. B, discussion and possible action on developer request to change plot trail. This is very confusing. So, did we at one point say this trail had to go in?
Yeah.
What?
The board did.
Okay,
When we were discussing it with the board, because of the fact that we were basically making a cul-de-sac at the end. The idea was to have through traffic for pedestrian traffic from one side of the cul-de-sac to the other, or to the open road, because we removed the road that went through. That was the idea at the time, and that was what was on the plat.
So basically, this trail is for water and sewer easement.
There's a
We
water and sewer easement that goes under it. Basically, the trail would go over it. That was the idea. Also, because of the fact that we have these easements that go through people's yards, they put things there, and when something happens that we need to get at our pipes, we basically rip up their yards, and it causes problems at times. That was part of the reason, yes.
So you're saying like if they put a garden shed or something
Right.
where that easement is, that we would be, yeah.
Right.
Do you
Can I
have a
ask?
comment?
I just have one question about the trail in the easement. Who's paying to replace it when you have to rip it up for the pipe?
That would be us.
So what's more costly, a shrub, as you said at that initial meeting, or a trail, or a sidewalk?
It's not necessarily just shrubs, it's other aspects that go into the area. And some people are very particular about their planters, and it's not necessarily based on cost as it is based on citizens' I don't have a preference on what you guys want to do with this. The issue is the developer wanted it removed. I wanted the board's approval to remove it if that's your choice, to move forward in the final plat. That's not a decision I make in my office, that's your decision. So that's why it's in front of you.
And this is the only thing that's holding up the developer's agreement? Or are there other issues?
For the most part, I think the other thing is their attorney's not getting us the agreement back, because that was what he was supposed to be doing the last few weeks.
Is there a reason your attorney is not working with the village?
He is actually he was waiting for tonight's decision to get the red line copy back to the village, because a lot of the items that are in that developer agreement deal with the liability of that trail, which falls back on the village at the moment. And that will all be stricken if the trail is removed.
So then what happens?
Well, if you remove the trail, basically, Versetto should send that over to our attorneys, they would look through it. And then basically at the next meeting, we would potentially have a developer's agreement for you guys to look over and agree or disagree on, and a final plat.
I'm not really comfortable approving any plat until we have a developer's agreement, like, in front of us.
Is that what we normally do?
But that he was asking for us to do a contingency. And I guess because we've had issues with other developer agreements in the past, I just am very leery about doing that until we have the actual developer's agreement in front of us.
What is your opinion as an attorney?
On what question in particular?
As far as if we would approve this plat tonight with contingency, or do we wait until we have the developer's agreement?
Let's see. I would say wait till the developer's agreement. I think the question tonight that matters for the developer and for you guys is whether or not you would want to make this change to the final plat. But I think you can wait till you have the developer's agreement. You could approve both at the same time.
So now it's just a matter of us deciding whether we want to keep that trail in there or not. And the reason why the trail was added was because of the cul-de-sac and because we were stopping that flow of, like, pedestrian movement is what you're saying. It's not traffic, it's pedestrian.
I don't remember talking about trail either.
I honestly don't remember talking about a trail. I remember talking about making a cul-de-sac. I remember discussing the amount of traffic.
Because I remember,
adjustments. I don't remember anything about a trail.
there was a citizen that was concerned about a roundabout, and then
Yeah, I remember
we
that.
realized
I remember all
that
that.
it wasn't a roundabout, it was a cul-de-sac. And I remember briefly there being, that the trail was in lieu of, that it was, that's all I remember.
I don't remember anything about a
I
trail.
don't remember anything about trail.
I remember talking about traffic flow and increased traffic
It
on
was
Coeur
pedestrian
d'Alene,
traffic.
but I do not remember anything about a trail.
Yeah, I remember that we approved the ending the Shilene with the cul-de-sac instead of having it go through.
Yeah, that was one of the more recent
That
meetings.
was more recent.
So
Yeah,
the
this
trail
was
was
this was a while ago.
Yeah.
So the
This
trail,
was discussed.
okay, so the trail was gonna go in even when Shilene was going to go straight through?
No.
Wouldn't need to.
No.
No, in the
Okay.
preliminary plat phase, which would have been, thinking either early March or late February, it was the preliminary plat was, I believe, approved. That would have been when we talked about the trail.
Okay. So, and this is where the utilities are gonna run, is underneath there, is that where?
I mean, the utilities are gonna run there regardless of the trail being there or not.
Yeah,
Correct.
so like looking at lot 16, looks like you're cutting the lot by about a third in the middle of the lot here. Is that correct?
No, it's
No?
it's the
Oh, is that,
deck.
oh, okay, is that?
I mean, it's cutting into the lot a little bit. The easement is gonna stay there. So the easement will still be there regardless of what the trail is. If there is no trail, it'll still be an easement, but it'll be a utility easement. It just won't be marked or anything like that.
So is this trail aligned with, okay, so I guess I was looking at that incorrectly, so that's the lot line between 15 and 16 and the trail bridges
Well,
on
the
both sides of
easement,
that, is that
well,
right?
the easement is, I believe, a total of 20 feet, 10 feet on each side. So if the trail went in the current thought was 8 foot, so it wouldn't be the full easement, but it would be a portion of the easement.
Somebody purchasing this lot up front would know about the easement, like, let's say we choose not to do a trail. Somebody buying that lot is gonna know about the easement, but then as this gets sold over the years, that easement gets forgotten, easements get forgotten. And then somebody does a title search and realizes it's there, or we need to do some kind of utility work and we're ripping up someone's yard. And then they're ticked off because we ripped up their yard, but we have the easement there. It's a 20, yeah.
Guess I'm trying to understand what is, it's a paved trail going through some people's yards.
Technically, yes, that's what it would be. I mean, it wouldn't, not through it on the side of it, but yes.
It's a trail to nowhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
What connects to Shilene?
Well, it connects to Jaco Street is what it does.
Part of the idea is because in our comp plan, we have a park that would be on the other side of Jaco, which is in the farm fields right now. So the idea was that if you had that easement in there for a trail easement, you would be able to put in a trail that would then connect people to that park. That was the idea, rather than those people having to walk all the way around, or the kids just walking through the yards. That was kind of the idea. But like I said, it's up to you guys on what you want to do.
I've seen the same thing, and by my in-laws' house, they have a very large park right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. There's 3 entrances, and the people that are on the further side, you're walking in a ridiculous amount of time to get through, but then you feel like you're walking through somebody's yard when you go there. It's not paved, it's just grass, and then they maintain it themselves, but it almost feels like you're invading their lawn.
I think of some of I think of the newer subdivision that is just east of Lions Park. There's a trail that goes through there that literally kind of goes, and it at first I thought it was awkward, but now I get it because I see a lot of movement and people in those neighborhoods using those and versus walking on the streets. I don't know. I live on a busy street. People walk in front of my house all the time, so I'm just used to it. To me, that's what it is. It's pedestrians.
Yes.
I think from a walkability and if there's a park that's going to be there, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you want people to go to the park, and if that you're going to have that neighborhood get bigger.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, basically, the only people that would use this, I'm going to call it a sidewalk connection because it really is, it's a 270-foot sidewalk, basically, are people that are on Shilene. Everybody else is going to go down the road that's parallel and over on the east-west road. I don't want to massacre this pronunciation of it. So. Jaco Street. So this is basically serving less than 10 houses. Everybody else will go down that other road.
Is the trail there right now?
Yeah.
No.
No.
No, I know it's not there, but I mean, like, where it's being developed, is it, like, are they doing they cut it in at all?
I don't think there's any sidewalks or anything, and nothing's been improved in this area for this to go in. Right now, Shy is a dead end right after the turn down, and there's nothing going from there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been up there, I see that like a house is getting built, and I see a dirt trail. I was just wondering if it was the same thing.
Don't know anything about that dirt trail.
The potential park would be where, Nathan? Are you looking at the,
So it would be at the farm next to basically where Jaco ends. That next area is currently on our comp plan. Not saying that it's
couldn't happen, right?
right. I mean, it's not in the village
Yes.
currently. It's part of the annexation
Yes.
properties that we have in the comp plan. But I mean, things change, especially, if someone acquires that property and wants to do a development, they might not want to park there and we might alter it. So I don't, it's, the comp plan is supposed to use it somewhat as a guide, but at the same time,
Mhm.
If there is an easement without the trail, are there any restrictions as to what property owners can have on that?
yes.
Okay,
I think, so part of the issue is in the past, we haven't had GIS that basically marks our easements.
mhm,
So basically what would happen is they go into a file randomly, and then when we're looking at someone coming in with a building permit, they didn't know where to look for those files, so basically building permits, like for garages or sheds or something, would get put in there
mhm.
over.
So you could potentially put a swimming pool
Pool.
there.
Pools and-
A swimming pool,
Right.
and I think of easements, a lot of easements somehow, even in title searches, they get lost.
Right.
It depends on who's
I
doing the
would
title.
say that we are looking at changing that and adding in GIS in the next few years here for easements so that things like that don't get used.
But then who polices that? So let's say you're driving by and you see somebody put a shed, they didn't do a building permit, they put a shed there, it's on the easement, who polices that?
It basically is us to look at it and see it and then basically
Is that a letter?
send a letter telling them they have to either remove it or, you know, informing them of it.
Are easements like that not written into the deed? Into
They
the
are.
deed?
They are.
They are, but sometimes they're missed. I can think of a couple of easements I've been involved in that during the title search, it just wasn't caught. But then another title company or another attorney caught it later. Just,
I would say the county records aren't the greatest
you know,
tracking. There are issues that happen with them. They're getting better. You know, this wouldn't have issues compared to the others. I'd say it's less likely so, but I don't know.
So what happens if someone does some expensive landscaping in that area and they put in, you know, like a dry creek bed and, you know, landscaping is expensive and then we have to go in and tear it up. Who pays for it?
Nobody.
Well,
You have
somebody
protections
pays for
on- You have protections on the plat for that easement that doesn't allow them to build in it. Therefore, the village does not have to reimburse.
But then they have to
Okay.
pay for it.
But
Yes.
so
Somebody
the
pays.
That doesn't
property
stop
owner has to
them.
pay for it.
yeah,
that doesn't
Is
stop
that-
them from
is that
coming to the
correct?
meeting
typically, yes.
and asking us to pay for
But
it.
we just tear it up and then leave it. And then the property owner, however, doesn't matter how much they invested in it,
I mean, typically, the most that we normally do, we'll reseed when we
Yeah.
leave. But other than that, typically, it's gonna be a angry landowner that comes in. and-
yeah. If they come in and plant trees and they're 30-year-old tree and we have to cut it down,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah,
okay.
So the idea of the trail was two things. It was the movability of pedestrians, and it was also to kind of
Force them not to do it, put something there.
correct.
because the water main typically would go under the street, but since it's a cul-de-sac, that's why it wasn't basically going under the street, but we wanted it to connect in.
But the utilities run along the border between these two, between 15 and 16, is that correct?
Into 8 and 9.
That's,
correct.
and 8 and 9,
Yeah.
okay, so they're right along, right on the property line between the two.
Mhm.
So, I agree, I think there's only a few people that this is servicing anyway, so I don't think, in my mind, that's not a good enough reason to keep it, just for the few people that it would service. To be able to get to a park, you know, I live in a neighborhood that has cul-de-sacs and people, they come out and, they move into a cul-de-sac because they want the isolation, they don't want the traffic, they don't want they don't want people moving around, so I get that. So if you move into one of these lots, I think the expectation is that, you might have to go out of your your little circle here to be able to get to the park and to get to other things. So for me, that's not a concern, the traffic. The only concerns that I have are, you know, easement concerns.
I have a question about liability. And that's more the attorneys. So the question was brought up about, so if somebody slips and falls on a potential trail, or somebody slips and falls. So whether it's a trail or whether it's just something we have an easement on, somebody gets injured in that 20-foot swath, are we liable?
It would depend on the circumstances of what it was, right? I think if it's undeveloped and we just have an easement on there, we didn't do anything there, then most likely not. If we had a trail there, there's recreational immunity that could cover it, but if we've let it fall into disrepair and it's jagged, then
Yeah.
it could be. So I don't have a clear yes or no. It sort of would depend on the circumstances, but there, you could, whenever we have a sort of property interest, there is potential for there to be.
I think from a comprehensive standpoint, it would, if we're going towards walkability and really community pedestrian oriented identity, I think it makes sense to have it there, because there's no parks in this area over there, and that would be a huge asset to those neighborhoods.
Yeah, but
People
you're only,
that live there.
yeah, but you're only providing access for 10 properties, and out of those 10 properties, assume, you know, it's a residential neighborhood, so assume that 6 or 7 of them might have kids that are of age to go to a park, and out of the 6 or 7, maybe 2, maybe 3 of them will actually use a park, so you're talking about, you know, three residences that have access to it, you know, to inconvenience the
These
the
are
property
two families,
owners.
by the way.
What's that?
These are 2 family lots,
Yeah,
so two
Okay.
families per lot. Just
So
giving
6.
you guys a
Okay.
background.
so,
Yeah.
but you're also, but then you're talking about sending people through their backyard. I mean,
So
yeah.
potentially like 24 families, because isn't there,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Courtney Lane, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm not. So potentially, I'm just looking at this abbreviated map here of 10 lots. So if they're 2 family units, it's potentially 24 families, right? Is that fair?
Where are the theoretical other park entrances?
Well, the park will be over here.
Where are the
There is no theory. Basically, it's a rectangle on a map of where they projected last time they did a comp plan was.
Yeah.
So on the GIS, it's just basically that farm from one side to the other, which,
Private property, and it's probably
right.
very likely to never end up in the hands of the village, knowing the owner.
So the other question I have too is, so somebody puts a fence at that property line. Okay, so where that easement is, and that homeowners decide to put up some kind of fence, how deep are those, like, utilities and sewer and all that stuff? How deep is it?
They wouldn't be able to put the fence to the end. They would have to do it on the edge of, if we were doing our jobs with the GIS and having it mapped, they would be on the edge of the easement and not in the easement.
That's assuming they get a building permit. And
We've
let's
made
face
people
it,
move them before because they have had it in the right
People
of way.
have had to move them
Yeah.
before.
So
I mean,
if somebody
recently
puts up a
too,
fence,
so.
we would tell them that they could only go up to that easement. They
Correct.
could not go up to the property line, is
Right.
what you're
They
saying.
would still need to maintain the easement though.
And if there's a trail through there, who maintains the trail?
The village would.
So basically, we are holding up this developer from selling lots because none of this has been resolved.
Right. Well, yeah, the plat hasn't been approved because of this, is the one sticking point,
Correct.
yes.
What is the 28-foot drainage easement? So that seems to run on this map more like that, east to west.
Mm-hmm. It's like stormwater to a stormwater pond, basically,
Okay,
is my understanding.
Yes,
okay.
there's a bunch of drainage paths in the backyard, stuff like that. If the trail would go in, there'd have to be a culvert under there to allow the water to flow through, which creates problems.
I'm just thinking of the other subdivision we're looking at right now, stormwater management, and how there's that drainage easement, and now there's,
Is it-
this, I get it has
I
nothing to do
mean,
with it,
most,
however.
so most subdivisions, they have the common swale between properties, and
Mhm.
that's similar in this area. You're not gonna have a big deluge of water that goes down these drainage easements. It's a little different than Lakeview. Lakeview is a lot more wet.
Yeah,
Very
I'm just
interesting.
looking at what says 28 feet, so is that 28 feet like from their property line, or is that 28 feet the length of their, that's what I'm trying to understand, I guess.
So basically, it'd be 28 feet for the actual drainage easement, and it looks like it would be, for most of them, it'd be their property line to that 28 feet.
Yeah,
added
north to
property.
south.
From there,
Right.
okay,
North to south.
Yeah.
okay.
Correct.
Yeah, basically, there's also a utility easement that's existing from the previous plat, and those utilities were installed, so we had to go a little further back. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the village setback right now, building setback for rear yard is typically at 25 foot, so this would be an additional 3 feet encumbrance on those lots.
So the village, we're not really too worried about the drainage easement as much.
Yeah, I just
But
wanted to question it, because it's something that's on there, and it kind of does encompass that potential trail.
I mean, this is, we're talking about a trail that goes through two lots,
four.
right?
Four.
Well, I mean, the length of two lots, so it goes on it bridges 15 and 16 and 8 and 9, right? So basically, it's a trail that's as long as two people's lots in the middle of a neighborhood. I'm not sure I have a really good understanding of why we want to put a trail there. I mean, we don't have a park. We don't have, even if there was a park, if I was to move into if I moved into a neighborhood, because this is probably very similar to my neighborhood, in terms of isolation, in terms of traffic flow, in terms of the idea that you get in here. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to move into I wouldn't want to buy a lot that's got the trail running through it where everybody's walking through my backyard. I get it. I mean, it's the same reason the pork doesn't want the trail to run through their yard. I mean, you just don't want people walking through your yard.
Summer vacation.
Just ask anybody who the county just ripped up their front yard and they're putting that nice bike trail alongside the highway. There's not a lot of really happy people about it. Now, granted, that trail will actually go somewhere, right? And it'll probably get a lot of use. This is gonna get, it may get some use, but it's not gonna get a lot of use.
I got a
So-
question about the easement. How is this easement worded on this property? Is there anything different about this easement? Is it just listed as utility easement? Or how is this listed? That's my question. I'm thinking about the legal part of this. I'm thinking about tying another board's hands later down the line, or having somebody come yell at the board because we ripped up their yard, and I just,
Yeah, I have not seen any actual language with it. Actually, we've been working on that, so I can't say I've seen the actual language on that. I don't know if we have it. I would assume that there would be anything different with it than a normal easement, but
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, other than the fact that it allows for the trail portion of it as well. It's a trail easement as well. So, I mean, we're still kind of negotiating between, obviously, the language of the easement because of that. So, that was something the attorneys were kind of going to go back and forth over, but there's no point to do that unless we have a decision on whether or not you guys want to keep this in or not.
I'm just looking at 15 years from now, this property owner has now sold, and the second or third person has bought that property, and they don't know about the easement. They put in a ton of landscaping. We rip up their yard because we needed to fix something or do something, and that board can look at them and just say, well, we'll reseed it. That's what I'm trying to,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what I'm
Yeah,
looking
that
ahead
was
and going,
My first question too.
that's my fear, is that a future board is gonna have to deal with this decision that we make.
we would make sure that the language of the easement protects the village in the sense of no one can have anything on there. If you do, you know, this is.
This is your risk.
That's
your
my
risk,
concern right now,
Yeah.
is to make sure that we are not putting another board
The easement
Well,
would cover that.
aiding us because we made this
Yeah,
decision.
that's easy to
No.
do. The question is whether or not another board's gonna look someone in the face and say, well,
I get it.
that's more of the question, which you're gonna get in any easement that you have.
Because we had a developer's agreement where certain things were added to certain properties and the homeowners didn't know, and then everybody, you know, so I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on how that's written in there.
Well, I mean, is this any different than, this is just a normal easement like we see
Right.
on everyday properties, correct? On developments?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a normal
so-
easement,
Yeah.
but I just want to make sure that it's very clear in that,
Nothing special.
in that
I think
agreement,
the
developer's
problem,
agreement.
without getting into details, the problem was, you know, it's better to have the attorneys basically creating developers agreements.
Yes,
That's the big difference
Correct.
between anything prior and now.
Okay.
So I'm not too worried with the language. The attorneys have been involved with the whole
good.
thing.
And that's what I'm getting at, is that sometimes these developers agreements have come back and kind of bitten us because they weren't written
Right.
in a legal sense.
Can I speak to the easement and the language? And when you, Nathan, when you scrolled the sheet to it, it looked like you had an old one that wasn't the one I had sent you several times. But I have on sheet 2 specific grant language that protects the city. It's something that City Appleton attorney sent me, and they require it on all their things, and I've been using it on all the plats. So when there's a water main easement, it basically says, you cannot put anything in here. The village, if they damage something outside the easement, they have to pay for it, but they're not responsible for anything in the easement. And I can resend you the.
I have
latest
it.
one. Okay.
I purposely haven't put it in because the attorney didn't like the language in one section of it. When it came to the trail was the reason, so.
And if the trail's gone, that section's gone.
Correct.
So,
I don't see the need for the trail at this point, and there's no park, we don't even own the land that the projected park is supposed to go on. And this is a quiet community, like you said, Jim, like your community where, I mean, people ride their bikes and up and down the streets. I think it's pretty normal back there. I've seen kids back there riding their bikes. I don't think there's a ton of traffic back there anyway. So I think as long as we have the right easement wording, it is what it is, like any other house.
So basically, we could approve this tonight as far as taking the trail out.
Yeah, that's on the
And then
agenda.
contingent upon the developer's agreement. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was that second part?
We would have to, we could approve taking the trail out and then work on the developer's agreement
Right, and
and the
that,
easement.
yeah, that would just happen regardless, so you don't have, doesn't have to be contingent on anything. I think
Okay.
They can move forward with it with the trail removed.
with the trailer removed, then
Work
our
on it.
attorneys will talk, and then we'll have it at
And then you
developers
would
agreement
bring
at the
that
next
back
meeting
at the
with the
next
final
meeting?
plat as well, right?
So we're not approving a plat, we're not approving the developer's agreement, we're just simply giving a head nod.
No,
No,
no.
we're,
Making a
we're
motion to
making a
remove
motion
the,
right.
to remove the
remove the
trail
trail.
If that's what.
wording,
Right,
okay,
or to just remove the trail, that's as simple as it needs to be, it doesn't need to be about wording, we'll take care of it on our end, but,
yeah, if the trail's not there, there's no reason for the wording.
right,
yeah.
so.
But I don't want to approve any plat or a developer's agreement until we have all of that in, and I'm looking at the attorney thinking this is what he recommended, is that we have all that before we approve a plat. I'm not trying to delay anything, I just want to make sure that, because there could be something else that pops up, you know, and, oh, well, wait a minute, the board already approved the plat, but now this is different, and,
Well, I think we can just remove the trail without doing anything with the plat, right?
yeah.
Right.
We're not doing anything to the
Yeah,
plat.
I'll make a motion to remove the trail from the Westman Estates plat.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. C, discussion and possible action on comprehensive plan firm.
Anyone have thoughts?
I was trying to compare apples to apples on like the cost.
It's, I would say it's a little harder to do.
Yeah.
I would take it into consideration, the cost differences, but at the same time, there's gonna probably be a little increase on one, and there might be a little decrease on the other, but it's, I mean, there's a clear difference in cost, so you can't really just,
Yeah.
And
I think what's hard about this is that we don't know what is all going to be included because we haven't done, you know,
right.
the full, what do
Yeah.
people want?
So basically, at this point, if, you know, you chose a firm, we'd come back with a contract and the contract, it might be two contracts in general. The first contract would be a cost associated with reviewing the comp plan with them to figure out what needs to be replaced and what things you guys want in there. And then a second quote with those things. Is kind of the thought that staff was kind of debating. Well, staff is in me and Aaron, so I'll clarify that. So,
It would give each firm an opportunity to refine their costs.
right. Well, and
Based on our scope.
I think each firm had the same RFP that went out. They were quoting the same thing. So in my opinion, there's a clear one that's a little more expensive than the other. But if there was a difference in the performance that you thought with their discussions, I don't know what your thoughts are.
I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but do you have anything to add? Any opinions or?
This is something you guys work with day in and day out,
Mhm.
so.
I mean, so I would say we have more history with MSA than we do errors.
Mhm.
We're currently trying errors on the one section of Lakeview to kind of see how that
Mhm.
works out. I think both firms are good firms, but I think in my opinion, at this point, MSA has a little more background in the village, and has a little more knowledge of kind of the goals that the staff has shared with them in certain areas, because they've been a part of the park plans, they've been a part of the downtown zoning stuff, or the downtown parking areas and stuff that we're doing down there. But that's just my opinion, I don't know.
As far as I'm concerned, I guess, I think the price difference really isn't that great compared to, you know, what we're trying to get as a service. And I think both firms did a really good job of kind of doing their homework, doing their legwork, and knowing a little bit more about this project, you know, as when they came in here than what was just in the RFP. I think that's a good sign. That means that they're spending the time to get to know the community before even basically getting paid to get to know the community. So I don't think you could go wrong on either. I think there were some differences that they kind of presented to the people that were in this room on how they would go about community involvement, or some of the different potential visions for the community. So I think it's just basically which one you
Difference.
Yeah, which one you preferred.
Where's everyone's thoughts?
I thought both presentations were excellent, so I feel great with either of them. You know, it's kind of diplomatic. They're both really good.
So this could go up or down, depending on what we need and want.
Yeah, I mean, technically, when you're doing a comp plan, some people will do a full-on housing study and add that in. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do to add it to either comp plan and make it more expensive. I think generally, if you're just gonna go through and do the update, I mean, this is what the cost should be.
So this is nothing additional, like you said. This would be just our basic looking through what we have.
Well, with the, following the state statutes, which need to be done, yes.
Right.
That's pretty much what they were supposed to be quoted for, was basically an update to our comp plan, and, yeah.
So then this project cost on MSA, the optional task is like 9,000 more, so you would add that on to the 25,000?
I mean, if you wanted those optional things, yes. I mean,
But the other one includes them, or no?
A lot of similar things.
I mean, they didn't necessarily tell us what the additional public meetings would cost. I don't believe in the AIRS one. But
And maybe I missed it. Do both? I see MSA has like a dedicated project website. Is that on AIRS as well?
I think both.
Yours is on
both-
phase 2.
On phase 2, okay. Okay, project website, okay. That was, because I think of that in community, communication.
So it wasn't the one,
It was additional on.
yeah, it was additional for
MSA,
MSI,
but-
MSA, yeah. It's
Mhm.
$1,200 additional to do a dedicated project website.
Who did the last one? Because I forgot to look at the.
Northeast Regional Planning
Oh, that's-
Commission.
Okay.
Between the two of these, how much resources from village staff? Like, is there a difference between like what you would need to prepare or you need to do village staff wise?
Well, I don't think between the firms that matters. I think it's however much you want to reduce potential costs.
Okay.
I mean, staff can do some stuff. I mean, I started going through it and looking through and marking ones that were accomplished or whatnot, ones that I think we should look at and going through each one for certain areas. But, I mean, my guess is both are going to be the same amount unless you want to reduce.
It's just the data collection is likely the same data. It's just a matter of, I'm just trying to figure out how much.
And I think it doesn't hurt to kind of just, it's hard, to give them credit in a half an hour to really get a good feel. But how comfortable were you with the project team they proposed and the qualifications of the project team that they laid out in the proposals? Because that's the people that you're going to be working with to get this done. I think that's another good thing to just kind of take into consideration. I spent 17 years on that side of the table before I came here, so I know how it goes.
Yeah. So you know that feeling, yeah. And nothing against AIRS, but I have more experience with MSA, and especially when we look at like Alonzo Park, we look at, other projects that we've worked with MSA on, just because of that familiarity. But then again, there's nothing saying that AIRS couldn't be somebody that you're familiar with, down the line.
Given the fact that we've worked with MSA, I wonder if that would help with some of the background and going forward, that there wouldn't have to be repeating some things, or But there'd always be that for reference. Okay. Yeah, no,
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt, but it's helpful, but not like, I don't think
required.
it's huge, like a
Okay.
major help that is gonna save us a lot.
Okay.
I mean, it does help that they have an understanding of
Mhm.
everything that we've kind of been dealing with the past few years.
Mhm.
That does help, but
Well, I think in terms of qualifications, I mean, I think this was really high level to start with. I mean, it's very much fluff to start with the exception of here's our people and here's our qualifications. With the exception of, I think, is it Dan? Is it Dan?
Yep.
Yeah, with the exception of Dan, I mean, we got a couple of people who have less than 1 year who provided the presentation. I think that was fairly evident. In looking at the qualifications of the team that they put together, I would say heirs that what they provided, and this is all we have to go on. It's not a criticism of anyone, but I think that based off of what you have to go on, the heirs team, their presentation shows more qualifications and more experience and more potential projects that they have to draw off of than what was presented from MSA. That being said, I really don't have a big leaning either way. I'm just doing I'm just speaking out loud here, or thinking out loud as to the presentations and the materials that were presented to us.
Jim, help me out, where do you see
If this was a job interview and I was hiring one of you two firms, I would hire heirs. You know, I mean, looking at the numbers, it looks like the MSA is a lot closer than the 20,000. It looks like they're around 34,000 because the heirs includes things like the website, and they have a number of meetings listed in the cost proposal for services. If you go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, some of the same items that are already included, it appears, in their price are the extras in MSAs.
I just did all that.
Yeah.
It's actually, if you matched them 1-to-1 with all the community meetings and whatever, because there's like 3 of them in errors, and there's 1 in the other one comes out to 35,000.
Yeah, I figured it
actually.
was probably about, yeah, it's a lot
34.
closer than the 20, so it's closer to $10,000 difference in the price. So, you know, do we need those extra meetings? That would be a question. In terms of, you know, what we're actually going to do and what we're going to do with the comprehensive plan after it's provided.
What's the breakdown of those prices? Do we remove
Yeah.
from the 45?
Jim, help me out, where do you see that less than a year for staffing?
Okay, so
Matt?
when you,
it was just 1 or 2 of them.
yeah, so, yeah, actually, out of the 3 people that just presented here, so if you go to the page that looks like this, right here, the 3 people that just presented, right? Alexa, right? Dan here, Dan's got 9 years' experience, but the other 2 were less than a year, less than a
No,
year.
Jason's
I
at
think-
18.
Was it
Yeah.
Jason? Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you missed,
Okay. So I missed Jason, sorry.
and I think Amy, project manager.
Oh, yeah, but
24
you,
years.
I mean, out of the people that were here, it was,
Some of those,
Yeah.
they all have more experience than that
Yeah.
with planning.
Right.
It's some of their time with MSA.
yeah.
Right.
So,
If you look at the paragraphs below there,
Yeah.
they have quite a bit of experience.
But, I guess, like I said, if I was doing interviews for my business, and I interviewed, this was all I had to go off of, I would probably go with theirs. But that's, I mean, this is a really, really, you know, let's paint with a broad brush kind of, what did you like a little bit better than the others? I didn't see a big, other than, you know, a little bit cleaner presentation for, coming in saying, you know, this is, this is why I'm more qualified, which is I have a technical background, so that hits me in a, when I talk to people and determine whether or not I think they're gonna do a better job. So if someone comes in and says, this is what I did, this is why I'm more qualified than the other one, and I look at it on, then that would be the one that I would typically go with.
And that's interesting because, you know, I look at that, I felt more comfortable asking questions with MSA, and maybe it was just because of the way the presentation ended. I just felt that made me more of a collaborative, you know, I don't know. I just felt that there was, I just felt that, and nothing against Ayers by any means.
No.
You guys were limited to that 30 minutes, but I just feel like this is going to be such a huge collaborative effort between village staff, the board, the community, that's going to be huge. And I just felt like there was just that, I just felt there was a little more opportunity there for that collaboration. And it had nothing to do with the presentation from Ayers, it's just the feeling I got, so.
Piggybacking off of what Pat said with MSA doing the Alonzo Park, I mean, could we have Ayers do Alonzo Park, or, because Alonzo was between MSA and McMahon. But it'd be great if someone did the whole village.
This would cost a lot of money.
Yeah, but we're gonna have MSA do the park.
No, they did the general, so they did the general overview of the park.
Yeah.
We approved McMahon to do the actual upgrades to the park. But MSA has done a lot of the design overview work for us, for the park, the pathway changes potentially, but yeah.
I kind of like the continuity of that myself, and I would agree with Julie. Both firms are real good, but
We would need a motion then. Everyone's satisfied with the discussion.
And I'm looking at staff here, and I'm saying, you guys are the ones that do this day in and day out. And, you know, you can't recommend, I get that, I get you're in a tough spot, but I also would hate to make a motion and approve a particular firm that you're like, wow, I really wish the board would have done that.
I think you're in a win-win situation.
Yeah, we're in a win-win situation, so regardless, okay.
I've worked with Amanda and Chris before. Chris wasn't here, but when they came in and did that preliminary design
Yeah.
a few years ago,
I remember
and they were professional. It was good. I don't think we're gonna have an issue with either team.
Okay.
Personality
And I'm not trying
wise,
to
yeah.
hold them to it, but you know, this is a twice a month thing for us. This
Yeah.
is an everyday for them, you know.
I agree. I mean, I do think MSA had they had a good presentation as well, and they were very easy. And that does play in, that's a positive, it makes them more approachable.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see a bad choice either, so I don't have a strong one, I just was thinking out loud.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
very hard.
It's hard
Yeah.
with 25, 30 minutes. I have no preference, I'm not gonna make a
Me
motion, I don't care.
Okay, I'll make
To
a
be honest, it
motion.
doesn't matter to me.
Jane will pull the trigger.
I'll make a motion to approve MSA as the comprehensive plan firm.
I'll second.
Roll call, Grace.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay, D, discussion and possible action on bike night motorcycle parking requests for Commercial Club of Hortonville.
So this looks like it's a annual motion that comes up
Yeah.
for the
Mhm.
raffle and the bike night.
Just looking for a motion.
We just need to get it printed out.
Yeah, somebody just needs to make the motion. We do this every year. Yeah, and it seems to work out really well for them. I'll make a motion for the bike night parking exception request to approve a special exception to the parking codes to allow motorcycle parking only on Thursday, August 17th, 2023, on both the north and south sides of West Main Street between Pine Street and Mill Street from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. E, discussion and possible action on handicap parking exception for commercial club Harley raffle.
I will make a motion for the handicap parking exception request to approve a special exception to the parking codes to allow handicap parking only on the west side of Oak Street between the commercial club park driveways during the commercial club Harley raffle event on Saturday, August 19th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. F, discussion and possible action on four-way stop on Bath and Mill Street.
This was requested by a board member, and a citizen came up to me and asked about it too, so.
We had a four-way stop there for a while, didn't we?
No, it was a two-way.
No.
But it was, we switched the signs.
We switched
No, it
it.
was four-way.
It
It
was
was way long time ago,
Yeah.
but then it
Well,
was,
when
then
the
it was
bridge was
two.
out, when the bridge went out, we
I
put a
think so.
four-way there.
Yeah,
'cause
and then it
used to
was, then it was
always-
two, but it was going the opposite direction. And now we have a crazy speeding situation. I mean, there's an officer down there now sitting 3 times a day at the canning factory, watching it, because it's nuts.
Yep, I drove through twice just to kind of feel the traffic before this meeting.
It's ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they're going 40 miles an hour down that road.
I'm fine with the four-way stop. but I don't know what we
On
need
Bath
to do.
Street, so they're coming off of Nash, or they're coming from Lincoln and and it's like the speed that they're gaining going up that road is crazy. It's crazy, and there's a ton of kids down there. I mean, especially now, kids going to rec, kids coming back from rec, it's like,
So what do we need to do to put a four-way stop at that intersection? Is it, it's a
Motion.
village, it's a village street, we can make that decision, we don't have to do anything else, right?
right. I mean, they're rolling through the stop sign as it is, so they're not even stopping at the stop signs. It's right by my house, so I watch, oh, that's nice.
And I remember the discussion back when it was a four-way stop, that it was because people expected the other people to stop, so then they were just kind of rolling through. So that's the risk you take at a four-way. I mean, I'm all for it, but that was one of the issues we had.
But when we switched it to the two-way, it was two-way, and then that was originally going the opposite direction, it was on
Right.
Mill, or on Bath.
Yeah,
And that's because we had people speeding down Mill,
yeah.
coming off the hill from Nash by by Loose Wheel. Now, they've just taken another way and just decided to go crazy the other direction.
Didn't we talk about stop lines on that street at one point?
They're there,
They were
they
there.
were there, they're gone, but they were there. There
I
was
remember
stop
that.
line.
lines.
They had,
Oh,
that's like
stop
the
line.
Yeah,
the
stop
white
lines
lines, they
on
were
the
there.
road. Yeah.
I think they're still there on Mill, but yeah, it's a problem. We've got some kids with handicaps down there too, that's concerning, that are, riding bicycles and stuff on the street, and that makes it within 2 doors down of that intersection.
Are there any other options other than making it a four-way stop?
What's your solution?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking if there's any other,
I
I don't have
don't-
another solution. It wasn't,
I don't know. I mean, other than having a police officer sit there all day long.
yeah.
I mean, I'm out there in my garage for almost every night. Every night I'm in that garage. And I'll be out there at 11 o'clock at night, at 6 o'clock at night, all night long. It's ridiculous. I can tell you all the vehicles too, because I just sit there and watch.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
Put humps in.
What's that?
Speed bumps?
Speed bumps.
No, humps.
Humps.
Have you ever been in,
Oh, yeah.
Greenville?
Like on
Yeah.
Greenwood, like on Greenwood in
Yeah.
Greenville.
Those
Believe
little tiny
me,
weird
it's-
It
roundabouts?
really slows them down, but how expensive is speed bump?
Oh, they suck. I mean,
Yeah.
Nails.
Well, they make those,
they're horrible because they need them for
Nails.
bikers
Nail
and
strips.
everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it's-
So I think a stop sign is a little cheaper.
And easier.
And, yeah, easier maintenance and.
I mean, I know
Yeah.
that's the road you go down, so
no,
I
I
go down to
don't
OT now,
go
but
down that much. I mean, I used to live on that road and it was, it wasn't, the biggest traffic issue we had when I lived there was the canning factory trucks.
But, I mean, MidCon has got trucks going down there constantly too, and forklifts and whatever, like, there's a lot going down that road now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only reason I brought it up, 2 years ago now or whatever was because we initially put it as a four-way stop because of the construction, or the reconstruction of the bridge.
The non-bypass?
The non-bypass, yeah, right, to prevent people from speeding through there so much. And then, once the bridge was done, you know, it made sense to go back. But if it's an issue, I don't have a problem with it. I was just looking to see if there was any other suggestion. Because
I just have concerns, there's a lot of kids that go down that road.
Motion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we put a four-way stop on Bath and Mill Street.
I second that. Or if Shauna wants to be on record seconding that, I'll let her take that one.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Set up cow for discussion on the camera policy.
So we just need to set up a cow?
A date, yeah.
Yeah.
Date.
At the next board meeting?
do we expect this to be a long discussion? Add it to an agenda, or?
I don't know, it's you guys determine it. I mean, I don't know how long it would be.
I think it was that there was going to be some potential policies and there was some legal questions that were, and
Well, yeah,
Do we have
I think that
anything?
you guys had questions for that guy, the owner of the camera place. Is kind
And
of
he
what,
would attend, I think, right?
right.
Yeah, I don't know, I think it'd be pretty quick. I think we could probably do it before the meeting, but if we want to set up a separate call, we can do a quick one.
It's up to you guys. I don't have a preference. I just put it on there,
So
so.
you would need to be sure this person is coming
Right.
from
Well, I mean, if you guys want to do it during the village board meeting, I can just put it on one of the next village board meetings. I don't need to know when he's coming, or you guys don't need to set a date then. If you want to do it at a cow, then
the, so can't he come at a call? It would
could.
be earlier in the day.
Well, right, but if you guys had to plan a cow, I'm saying, then it's a specific date where if you wanted them at a board meeting, it could be any of the next 8 board meetings. So, that was kind of my,
it gives you more flexibility to,
at the board meeting, it gives us more flexibility for meeting times than it does for a cow, because you guys are gonna set a date for a cow potentially, and then,
Can we do just the cow before the board meeting? That's my choice.
yeah, if you guys want, I mean, I can put it 30 minutes before a board meeting and see what date he wants
Could
to
we
do
just
it.
have him call in?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean,
I'm
why
sure-
does he have to come?
Cause you guys
We
have,
only had 1 or 2 questions for him, actually.
Yeah, it
So,
doesn't
I mean,
physically have to be here.
Why does he have to come here?
well, because you
wants
guys
to be-
asked, you wanted
maybe
to
he wants
see
to.
like the background stuff, that's why. So I don't know if he was gonna come and do a little presentation, I don't know.
Okay.
So whatever you guys wanna do, I can set up, it's not,
I think if
but
we
this
get 30
doesn't,
minutes
this
before.
just encompasses the cameras on one system. There's other cameras in the village that are, so, there's other facilities in this village that utilize other cameras that are not held by this guy. So I guess that was some questions I had was, because there was some talk about logs, somebody wants logs or access to logs. I don't think logs are a possibility, so I don't want to go into discussion tonight, but I think we need to remember that this isn't just one system.
But I thought we were only creating the policy for this one system.
Yeah.
We were eliminating, we were specifying and pulling out separate systems.
Okay.
Like we pulled out the police from.
Unfortunately,
separate-
that meeting, the audio
Yeah.
was choppy,
We-
so I
we
couldn't
pulled-
watch
We
the whole
pulled,
meeting.
which only certain aspects go, this policy was strictly for the new system, and it was for, pulling out like the police department from separating that, it's a separate discussion.
Okay, and then was there a legal question too about the ability for the logs? I don't remember. I just asked you, because the audio didn't come through on the meeting. That was the problem. I couldn't come. I was gone.
yeah, I mean, there's no issue legally or anything.
Okay. So, I mean, if it can be covered in a board meeting, that's fine. We don't need to do a
Even
call,
if it's at
whatever's
30,
easier.
even if it's at 30 minutes beforehand, I don't care, either way. I
Yeah.
would just prefer not to have another day.
Mhm.
Right.
It's too hard to get everyone, you know.
I'd rather do it on a board night.
Yeah. Is that what you're gonna do, 30 minutes before or
Set up-
in the,
Yeah, I would say set up a 30-minute. I'll just set up a 30-minute and then put it on the agenda, just like we did.
Yeah.
tonight.
So after the couch.
Okay.
And the meeting date, Nathan, I think needs to just be whatever works for
Yep.
whichever
Yeah.
meeting it is. Yep.
Okay, we'll go to H, discussion on affordable senior housing.
This was something Pat wanted to talk about.
Yeah, this has come up numerous times at our senior activities committee meeting. There's a couple members here tonight, and other people have talked to them and myself. And I guess looking at what was presented tonight by the comprehensive plans, looking at that, housing was in both presentations. So, looking at different types of housing. I think what we would like to know is there a plan, is there land available that like you, Nathan, you and I talked about, that is there a way we can promote affordable housing, not just senior, but affordable housing for singles, families, seniors? We're looking at so much development, but how can we be doing a good job of it? And in a sustainable way too. Are there buildings around here that could become housing? Could we have multi-purpose housing? And I don't know what the best way is to go about this, but I think it's a concern, and it is all over. I recognize that. It's not just Hortonville. Everybody's short of housing. I think I went to a session in Appleton. The Fox Valley Housing Coalition put it on. There is a PowerPoint available that we could watch. It doesn't take long, obviously not tonight, but it's very informative, and it talks about how affordable housing gets a bad name. You know, when people hear that, they think it's all, huge apartment buildings, when 50% of the population is actually low income or extremely low income. So that's half the people. In looking at how much, obviously we're a growing community. We want to keep people here that want to stay here. People want to age here that have been here all their lives, but we also want to attract new people and new families and young people and potential business owners like we were talking about. So I guess I'm open to how do we go about this discussion? Do we wait for the comprehensive plan and really be vocal with them about it? Because it seems like it's on their agenda to look at housing.
So the housing portions is basically updating our housing section of the comp plan. If you wanted a housing study, that's additional money. I mean, that's gonna be another plan, basically. I guess for affordable housing stuff, I mean, I think one of the hard things is, I mean, you can plan for it in different areas. We don't have any open lots, really, other than the 2 lots that we're selling that is about an acre. That's really available, other than, the industrial area on Main Street that's selling for like 3.8 million. So for promoting affordable housing that way, for us buying and developing, or getting a developer to come here through a TID, we're kind of limited there. The other one thing you could do would be amending zoning code to allow for certain smaller lot sizes in certain areas. That could be a new zoning district that you could put in a certain area so that it doesn't affect this area over here, or a different, subdivision in a different area. That could be done. But other than that, I think it would be probably talking with, probably people who have a little more expertise than myself on
Have you talked to like the Outagamie County Housing Authority? And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
not just, like, I'm not thinking Pinewood, I'm thinking like Housing Authority, like they've got like the Randall Apartments, I mean, there's I wonder if the county is doing is the county doing anything?
Well, that's the meeting I went to, and the
Okay.
Housing Authority was involved in that, and there's a whole presentation, and I have the PowerPoint.
There's a packet.
And it's a packet.
That
Yeah.
they have that talks about it, that talks about the, I think it's the Fox Cities.
I'd be
Mhm.
curious to see like their
Housing plan.
regional, like is
And
our
that's-
region
And that's what they did, yeah.
something part of
Mhm.
that, you know?
Yep, they studied the whole region, are looking, forecasting,
Mhm.
what are the needs? And everybody needs,
Yeah.
affordable housing. But there's so many different options out there now as far as multi-use. You've probably heard about the tiny houses or when you add on a unit to homes, looking at what can we do to be flexible in our zoning ordinances to make us look at that, make us be more flexible as to future
I'd be a
housing
little
needs.
skeptical of ADUs, which is additional dwelling units.
Well, there's ways to tighten it, but not too tight. I know what you're gonna say, because they've run into trouble with it turning into a rental, or turning into a Airbnb or whatever.
Greenville has one right now that's allows for relatives.
Mm.
So I could build an additional dwelling unit in my backyard and allow my mother-in-law to live there.
Well, and that's what they are.
We do have a house like that with the mother-in-law suite,
Mhm.
yeah, which had, like now the mother-in-law died, so now they're left with this and they don't wanna rent it out.
And the hard thing.
Because now you've
Yeah.
got a stranger living right
Mhm.
attached to your home,
Mhm.
so,
Well,
yeah.
I'm just looking at that as, because it's worked well for people. I have a friend who has a son with considerable disabilities. They put one on their home,
Yeah.
For him.
Yeah.
So, I guess we're hearing it from numbers of people, not just seniors. And I just hope we can look at it more. What
It would be
buildings do we
nice if
have?
we had land, but we really don't. I mean, I've had people call me asking if there's any lots available just to build, because they
Mhm.
wanna stay in Hortonville. And they, but there are no lots. I mean,
Right.
there's we just don't have the land.
I understand.
We're so locked
So could we
in
though
here.
be the segue for, I think of some of the more declining industrial
Mhm.
areas. Okay, and I won't even say the property, I'll say declining industrial.
That's exactly what I know.
Declining industrial, so to take that blight, to me it's blight, and work with maybe a developer at creating that affordable housing to replace that. So
The
we're
issue-
not buying, we're not selling the land, we're just working with somebody with zoning to try and get that,
Reimagine it.
to make it easier for somebody to come in and create that affordable
Mhm.
housing.
And that was brought up. I was gonna mention that, so I'm glad you brought that up.
So that
too.
would be something more, could be done on the comp plan. When you're talking about future land use items, that's something on the comp plan you could put in. The one issue is gonna be, it's a lot cheaper for the company to rent that piece of land for them, for their storage, than for them to build a new facility. So that's why they use it the way they do. And
But can we look at incentives
Yeah.
or grants or different things to incentivize a builder, a developer?
so there is those things
Yeah.
for developers.
Mhm.
It's all through the WEDC, the Wisconsin Economic
Mhm.
Development Group. So there are a lot of those incentives. I was in a webinar recently about one where they think the city of Sheboygan basically took an old industrial place and made it into multifamily housing. But
The mill apartments,
right, and that's part of the reason I called the one on Main Street, because I was curious on what they were selling it for, because it's in one of our TIDs. But I mean, the sheer cost of that one was just ridiculous. I mean, it's just,
Mm.
it's not feasible for the village to do that, even in the TID with TID money that we have coming in. It would have just been, and we had another issue with it, with TID, but
Maybe there's just a way to incentivize them and making knowledgeable it, like, hey, you get X for turning it into, or something simple as making sure our policies cover the ability to do something.
That we are not that closed door, that maybe another community just says, no, sorry, we don't really want anything like this. I just think that there's some eyesores that we could turn into something much different.
Right.
And then have it be a positive impact in the community. I know that when we built cottages, I know that there was this assumption, because it was low-income housing. Well, no, it wasn't low-income housing. It was titled something different, and I know that they had worked with a lot of the incentive plans and that sort of thing. And that provided, how many units. I can't remember how many units that was, but I don't know. I'm just thinking of, we have a lot of seniors in our area that
So
don't want
I
to take care of
have
their
reached
yards.
out to, that's the other reason I reached out to the real estate agent, because I wanted to let them know that it's in a TID. So if there is someone that wants to come in and do something, there might be TID funds available. And I left it at that. And that's typically why I do it with most properties that are not residential, that are in TIDs. I always call the real estate agent and let them know, but we just have very few open areas.
I know.
I mean,
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be just seniors. I mean, there's ways,
Right.
they're finding that there's a lot of advantages to having, different types of housing together.
right.
So, we don't want to have competition between who gets to move into Hortonville and not really stay. But this has definitely come up a lot in our discussions, so.
I think anytime you expand your housing options, even if it is the, subdivisions that we're doing in Wildwood and stuff, that has a place, because what it does is it moves people out of smaller homes into those homes, and then those homes are up for sale. So pretty much any type of development will help benefit that housing issue. I do think there's need for more affordable. It's just hard to get that affordable housing that's not multifamily nowadays, because even trying to do some of these other things, developers, it's a lot more profitable for them to build a $300,000 house than it is for them to try to build a starter home, as they say.
But
Although
if
starter homes are now $300,000
Right,
houses.
right.
Right.
Let's be fair.
If there'd be a
Fair,
way to
yeah.
reduce lot sizes and have more homes,
Right.
that's another thing.
That's
Smaller
one way to do
homes,
it, yes.
And if we could find a way to encourage that to be more creative and open to.
I think, so I don't know if you guys had a chance to read my weekly update to you guys, but the zoning code really needs an overhaul.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're looking into really quickly here, because we have a lot of different areas of town that were constructed during a different era and a different era
And they
of
failed.
planning and zoning codes. So you have some that have, a 6-foot setback on the side lots. So basically, if someone's trying to do anything, we gotta deny them if it's gonna alter that or encroach even more. So it just, there's a lot of issues that are kind of coming up. I know there's a homeowner who wants to do an extension on the back part of their home, on the corner of Lakeview over there, and
You don't want to extend it.
the issue is there's no room for them
Wanna tear it
to
down.
do it, because they're gonna invade the lot line, the setbacks, which they're already in issues with. So the goal would be to try to look at those areas and try to get a zoning code that would put them separated out into their own section, basically, for that era. And that's something the league kind of did, they did a long write-up with the Realtors Association and then a bunch of the home buyers. They did a huge packet describing those potential zoning changes and how they should be implemented to help with development. But
The league had a housing seminar too that was a webinar that I was sat in on too.
Yep,
A
that's the
user's guide
packet.
to Wisconsin neighborhood affordability. So lots of great ideas. And I think Outagamie County, I don't know if if we would apply as a village for ARPA funds specific for housing. Do you know anything about that?
From my I don't know anything about municipalities doing it. The
Okay.
issue is, I think a lot of these incentives are to the developer.
Okay,
So.
but it might be a way we could
Well, right,
work with the developer. Okay,
but I believe, I don't know this program, but most of the programs target developers, is how it's done.
okay.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll go to I. Any other miscellaneous topics for future discussions? Anything? Okay, we'll go to 10. Report of village officials. A, clerk treasurer, Jane.
My report was in the packet.
Are there any questions for Jane?
So, actually, I do quick. So this was put in the packet, this, and is that just that quarterly that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay,
Quarterly financials.
okay. All right.
Okay, B, director of public works, Aaron.
My report is in the packet.
Any questions for Aaron? None? Okay, we'll go to police chief, Chris, and hers is in the packet. And then we have D, library director, Ally.
As of today, we have 1,025 people registered to participate in our summer programming, which is the highest it has been since I've been here in early 2017. So that is a huge accomplishment, and I really give a lot of credit to our staff because we've been putting on an amazing summer this year. Exhausting, but amazing. Next week, Wednesday, we have our Midsummer Carnival. So we are not doing an end of summer blowout like we do most years. We're doing one in the middle of summer now. We're going to have bouncy house, face painting, balloon twisting, snow cones, cotton candy, hot dogs, and a lot of stuff. So really encouraging people to come attend that. That goes from 5:30 to 7:30. Wednesday the 26th, the library will be closed starting at 4:30 so that all of the staff can participate and put our entire collective effort into that. And then 2 days later, I'm partnering with Chris. We're doing a bike rodeo here in the parking lot. So the library and the police department are partnering to do that. It's like an obstacle course that people can come in. It's geared more towards kids that can bring their bikes, ride through the obstacle course. They have to have helmets. We're really excited for that. We did it too late in the season last year and didn't get a good attendance. So midsummer is going to be prime usage for us. That's pretty much all I have. I'm just ridiculously excited about the registration. Like, oh, I mean, you can tell when you come into the library that there's over 1,000 people registered. You can tell this year. So, that's about it.
Any questions for Ally? Okay, we'll go to E, attorney, Michael.
I do not have anything to report.
Okay. F, administrator, Nathan.
The SAP agreement was approved by the town of Hortonville on Tuesday night. So I have signed us up with Horton Group today. And the next steps are gonna be basically figuring out the fire department's kind of figuring out a point structure and how they wanted to have it implement, which would have to be approved by each board as well. And then one major question is how we would want to potentially help those who have already served prior years. So there's a financial formula for that, which I kind of done up, and then the cost. So I'm going to be meeting with the fire department to discuss a few things on that and what they want to potentially propose, because that would also have to be approved afterwards. So.
Any questions for Nathan?
I do. Highway 15, any recent updates? I know that the plan was that the roundabout was to be open by the end of August.
It's still the plan that I saw in the last meeting.
Still the plan that it's, okay. End of August? End of August.
Okay, we'll go to G, building permit report. There is none. 11, communication and miscellaneous business. A, Black Otter Lake District News. Jane?
We met last night, and we went through budgets and discussed our agenda for the annual meeting, which is August 29th. Everybody's invited. Food starts at 5, meeting start at 6. Sean is still working on the grant with the DNR, and the harvester is still not fixed. No date yet. We are not doing any more cutting of the lake at this point because the budget does not allow for it. And so we just kind of gotta hope for the best, that maybe the harvester will get back and or go on to another year.
Okay. Any questions for Jane? Okay, we'll go to B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News. Jim?
So we had a meeting on the 12th, and we discussed both the EMS and fire budgets, and then the calls, fire calls, they got 51. I've got a report if anybody wants to see it. The EMS has got 210. Both of them are right around average for where they were compared to last year. I got an update on the truck and trailer for the fire department. There's a slight delay on the truck. They're looking at the end of August. The trailer is in the next couple of weeks or so. And then we discussed the SAP. EMS is also looking to implement the program in the future. Chief Dorn stepped down. In case anybody didn't know, Jack is now the chief. He's retired and he wanted to use some more of his time for retirement stuff. He is still involved with and still holds a position at the fire department because he's employed at Pierce, and he can help us out in a number of ways because of that, because of those connections. Other than that, I think that's about it. Our next meeting is in 3 months or so. I also have a list with all the contacts of the new officers if anybody's interested.
Any questions for Jim?
Can you email us those reports? I mean, just because I see the other ones are usually emailed to us.
Yeah, they don't email them to me. I usually get just paper copies. I've included them before to Jane, but then last time I did that, they didn't end up in the report in the packet. So I didn't send them in this time.
Well, we can include it in the next packet.
Yeah, I don't remember you mind united for the packet.
That was at the last meeting.
I can do
Okay.
that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Reports and News, and it is in the package. D, Hortonville Civic Association. Jane?
Nothing to report.
E, Senior Activities Committee.
We met last Thursday, the 13th. We're continuing to plan and discuss Senior Autumn Fest, working on the menu. We're going to be doing flyers to be mailed out, put up around town. And we're soliciting more vendors and sponsors because we would like to have some more vendors for our booths for the people to walk around to. We had a picnic at Alonzo this past Monday, the 17th, which was funded by a private grant. One of our members applied for a grant, so the picnic, the food, all the supplies were covered, and we had a little bit left over to go towards Autumn Fest. So we had about 25 people there, 6 new attendees that we had not seen before. So they're regular card players, but they came to the picnic, so hopefully we'll get them involved in other things too. That's all I have.
Any questions for Pat? Okay, we'll go to 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Okay. 13, I would need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
One second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are now adjourned, 7:39.